Imagine finding somebody that you thought was going to be the love of your life, that you thought you were going to have a perfect Disney wedding with, grow old, have kids, and pass away. Well, not in that order, but like, you get what I mean. And that person that you thought was the one ends up actually being the person who ruins everything good in your life and kidnaps your own child. And it's legal and it's totally fine. Well, there's actually a decent amount of people that are struggling with this in Japan.
いつかこの景色がお相手に変わるその時あなたは何を
Hey friends, it's Akideras, and today's topic is kind of semi-new to me. I can 100% say that the case that I'm going to share with you today, whether or not you've experienced any of this, I'm sure we can all agree of how sad and messed up this is. And that is the fact that kidnapping your own child is technically legal and okay in Japan. But let me just get this out of the way. There's been a lot of Japanese people who know how messed up this is and have been trying to change it for a long time. And it's only really just surfacing now because of a lot of international pressure on Japan to change this law. Let me explain. If you marry a Japanese person and you two have a child together, and let's say things don't work out, and it's not even an abusive relationship. Let's just say that you guys just couldn't make it work out and you guys decide to divorce. Now, what happens to the child is that depending on who the system sides with more and which parent gets rights to the child, which most of the times it is the mother, then your ex-husband or wife can now just take your child, this human that you have both brought into the world, just kidnap them and you just can never see them again. And it's totally fine. Why? I don't know. I don't know why this is okay, but I do know that from everything that I've read, that if you were to sue your partner for kidnapping, it's a very long and complicated process because basically the government views it as just more of a civil problem rather than an actual federal crime. And it's really sad because especially in cases where there's a Japanese person marrying a foreigner and they both live in a foreign country and have a child, and if things don't work out, then the Japanese partner will just take that kid, go back to Japan, no questions asked, and the foreigner partner has no idea where they went. And it's really sad, and I'll show you guys a couple of cases here soon. Many of you are probably wondering, are there movements right now happening in Japan to change this? And my answer is, I mean, the changes are barely changes in my opinion. Right now, the Japanese government is in talks to allow for joint custody, which is like the most basic thing. It's the most basic thing to be like, hey, both of you are allowed to raise your kid, so you're fine. But even this is not actually fully legal yet. So if it were to happen to you right now, you would still have a pretty lengthy and very tedious case going back and forth to make sure that you're both able to do joint custody, which really should just be common sense unless there is blatant proof of like domestic abuse or that one of the parents is clearly unfit to raise the kid. Then it should be pretty obvious that the parents should be able to have joint custody and raise the kid still, even if things didn't work out. And the reasoning for why maybe the partner would ever even want to do this to somebody is honestly, from what I've read, the stupidest thing. There's a lot of different reasons, but one that I kept seeing that was reoccurring was simply because the partner just felt, oh, if I don't like my ex and I don't want them to have happiness, I'm gonna take their one happiness away from them, which is their own child, which is so fucked up. Because if I was the government, I wouldn't be giving the child to that kind of a parent who is about to kidnap them. I would just give it to the one who genuinely just wants to make it work out. Even though joint custody laws aren't really a legal thing in Japan, there are couples that know how to keep it civil and just like do it by themselves, and that's basically how the government views it. It's like, oh, that's your problem. So yeah, it's really messed up and it's really sad, but I'm just going to show you a few things here. Okay, so for this first case, it's published on Japan Times, and it says here that a famous tennis player named Ai Fukuhara reaches custody settlement after abduction accusation. So this tennis player was married to another tennis player named Chung Hong-che. Sorry if I can't pronounce it. Well, I'll just call him Mr. Chung. Chung accused Fukuhara of child abduction after she left for Japan with their son in the summer of 2022 and cut off contact with Chung, refusing to bring the son back to Taiwan. Fukuhara then went to the Tokyo District Court to have custody of the boy handed over to her. A year later in July, Chung disclosed at the news conference in Tokyo that the court had ruled that Fukuhara was required required to return their son to him. That is such an evil thing to do. So she decided to go back to Japan and kidnap the kid, basically, no questions asked. And she went back to Japan because she knew that it was going to favor with her, because she knew that moms mostly get rights to the child and that the government was very hands-off with this kind of thing. I guess she just couldn't accept the whole concept of joint custody. I don't know. To me, that is just evil. Because, you know, when you just take your kid like that, you're essentially just saying, I want my kid to just not know their father, or I don't want my kid to have anything to do with their dad, no matter how much they ask. That's basically what you're saying, right? So no, I don't think there's any excuse for her. Like, if the guy was doing like domestic abuse on her, obviously there's a case here, but I didn't see a single thing here. In fact, if anything, most of the pressure is on her. And I feel like if there was domestic abuse, she probably would have like mentioned that to further perpetuate her case so that she could have the kid. But she didn't mention any of that because she knows that there was no proof probably. So yeah, let's go on to the next one. The Tokyo Family Court ruled Thursday that a Japanese woman who ran off with her children and refused to let her French husband see them has the rights to their custody in a dispute which led French authorities to issue an international arrest warrant for the woman last year. Let me just watch this.
I've tried everything. I've tried to convince my wife by saying to her that it was not good for the kids. I've tried reaching out to the Japanese authorities, the police, prosecutors and courts, but they refuse that I have any contact with my children. Right now, I don't even know if they're alive.
God, that's so fucking sad, dude. Literally, she just ran off. She didn't even give him a warning. She didn't leave anything behind. I wonder, how much of a selfish bitch could you possibly be to just do that to somebody? I saw 60 Minutes actually do an entire documentary on this, so let's go watch that one.
Yui just made everybody's world a better place to be in. She gave me a whole new purpose of what it means to be a man, to be an adult. And now to be a dad.
It's Yui-chan and Daddy.
It really shows the level of immaturity you must have, that you can't separate your relationship from like your obligation as a parent. You're putting your own needs and wants over the kid. This guy seems like a pretty honest and decent dad, and for the mom to just run off, she's essentially saying, I don't want my kid to have that.
It's been 14 months since Dan White held his daughter Yui in his arms.
14 months. Like, I remember when I was first going to Japan, I was gone for like 2 weeks. This was like early when I was still visiting before I moved. And my mom had to like call me every day. She was like, I'm having trouble breathing. So imagine that long without your kid and you don't even know where they went.
Yui is one of 89 Australian children cut off from a parent because of Japan's cruel sole custody laws. The country has a bizarre system where divorced couples can't co-parent. Instead, whoever was last living with the kids gets to keep them, and the power to block the other parent's access.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're not allowed to co-parent. It's more like they're kind of like leaving it up to the couple to decide.
The most troubling thing is it allows parents to kidnap their children and get away with it.
I feel like this is just a recipe for disaster, but I would love to just legitimately sit down with one of these people that legit just kidnapped their kids and just know what their mentality was. Let me ask ChatGPT. So again, this is ChatGPT, so take it with a grain of salt. But number 1, culture norms. Traditional views often emphasize maternal custody and maintaining the child's stability with the primary caregiver. So what the culture norm is that it's normal to have the kid have only one parent, just the stronger one. You don't want them to have any help. Number 2, legal system. Japan's legal framework typically awards sole custody to one parent after divorce, with limited enforcement of visitation rights for a non-custodial parent. Oh, what? There's a reward system that only goes to one parent? I didn't even know about that. Number 3, domestic issues. Personal conflicts, fear of losing the child, or past domestic abuse can also motivate such actions. I mean, if that parent went through previous domestic abuse, like, yeah, they could probably be having some trauma. But I feel like before you have a kid, you should sort all that shit out, because when you bring a human into the world, like, all of your problems should already be like somewhat be put together or fixed. Like, you should be able to have yourself together before you can take care of another child. I feel like when you bring all of this like past resentment, trauma, and baggage to your kid, it's just asking for things to go wrong. Number 4, lack of joint custody. The absence of joint custody laws can lead to one parent feeling the need to secure custody unilaterally. Okay, so because nobody else is doing it, then I should also not do it. That is such like a Japan thing, because it's such like a collectivist society. Like, it's like, oh, all of these other like single divorced like people don't have joint custody, so I shouldn't have like joint custody. Like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. It's such, oh my god, I'm sad to say this, but I'm really not surprised if that's the mentality behind it. But again, let me just reiterate this. A lot, and I mean a lot of Japanese people are totally against this, because it should be very common knowledge that it should just come down to the kid. It's about the kid. It's not about the fuck the parents. The parents need to just buckle down and be like, okay, you know what, shit didn't work out with you, but I'm willing to just grit my teeth to make it work out for this kid, so that it has, so that he or she has a chance. Like, I don't even have a kid, and I feel like I'd be a better parent than any of these monsters. It's so weird to think that like there's a government out there needing to talk about, oh, should we have joint custody? Like, all my friends with divorced parents who have joint custody, there's no judgment there. It's their issue, it's their problem. And even with this issue, to Japan's credit, I feel like the country has done really well in a lot of other avenues. Like, they've done really well with the fact there's like near to no crime rate in Japan, to the point that most children in Japan, like as low as like 6 years old, can go on the train alone. Like, I've seen it all the time every day, and it's totally fine. You can go out like at night and not feel threatened. I was in LA last week, and it was during the day, and I did not feel safe. So there's differences obviously in many cultures, and this is just one of those things where in Japan it is just so alien to me, and it's just so strange to me that this is even a discussion, because to me this legitimately just seemed like common sense. This seemed like a thing that people do. If things don't work out, well, at least you guys can have joint custody of the kid, you know. But I guess in countries like Japan, they're just not up to date with that kind of thing. But let me know what you guys think. Appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Also, I'm kind of liking this angle a lot more than me like having my back towards that wall, but let me know if you guys have made it towards this part of the video.